My fiancée and her tycoon parents mocked my late mother's legacy at their gala, so I ended our engagement in front of their elite guests without hesitation. The storm roared like a living beast clawing at the cliffs of Cape Harrow, Maine, as I stood frozen in the grand ballroom of the Thornton estate. Rain lashed the floor-to-ceiling windows, each gust a scream that mirrored the rage boiling in my chest. My name is Ethan Caldwell, a 35-year-old lawyer who, until tonight, thought he'd found his forever in Claire Thornton. But the chandelier above me, glittering like a guillotine, had just crashed to the floor, inches from where I stood, its crystals scattering like shrapnel across the marble. The room gasped, a collective intake of breath from the elite of New England's coast, but I saw the smirk on Richard Thornton's face. Claire's father, the real estate tycoon who'd orchestrated this gala to flaunt his power. This wasn't an accident. It was a warning. And as Claire laughed off her parents' venomous toast mocking my late mother, I knew I'd been betrayed. The wedding was off. But the war had just begun. 6 years ago, I met Claire at a charity auction in Portland, the kind of event where old money and new ambition collide under the guise of goodwill. I was there representing my law firm, a small but respected outfit fighting for Mainers against corporate greed. Claire, radiant in a sapphire gown, outbid me on a vintage sailboat painting, her smile sharp as a blade. "You'll have to try harder next time, counselor," she teased, her voice a melody that hooked me instantly. We bantered over lobster rolls and cheap wine, her wit disarming, her charm magnetic. She was a Thornton, heir to a real estate empire, but she seemed grounded, untouched by the arrogance that defined her family. I was smitten, a small-town kid from a lobster-fishing family, dreaming of a life beyond the docks. Our romance unfolded like a coastal summer, warm, vivid, inevitable. We sailed Penobscot Bay, her laughter mingling with the gulls' cries. I proposed a year ago atop the Owl's Head Lighthouse, the Atlantic a silver expanse below us. She said yes, her tears catching the moonlight, and I thought I'd won the world. But Claire's world came with her parents, Richard and Margaret Thornton, whose wealth and influence cast a shadow over Cape Harrow. They owned half the town. Hotels, marinas, even the mayor's loyalty. Richard with his shark's grin and Margaret whose pearls hid a viper's tongue were the kind of people who'd smile while sinking a knife in your back. I told myself I could handle them for Claire's sake. I was wrong. My mother, Eleanor Caldwell, was the heart of this town until leukemia stole her 3 years ago. She wasn't just my mother, she was Cape Harrow's quiet savior. When fishermen lost their boats to debt, Eleanor organized fundraisers. When the community center faced foreclosure, she rallied donations. Her kindness was a lighthouse in the fog, guiding those who'd lost their way. Even the Thorntons, for all their wealth, owed her. 6 years back, Richard's hotel chain teetered on collapse, a victim of his reckless expansion. Banks laughed him out of their offices, but Eleanor stepped in, risking her own savings to co-sign a $500,000 zero-cents loan. She saved his empire, and he never paid her back. Not a dime. Not a thank you. And that was the onslaught Richard's universe had turned. That wasn't all. When their flagship hotel's HVAC system died, threatening to shutter it during peak season, Eleanor covered the $50,000 zero-cents replacement cost. She didn't ask for repayment, even as her own medical bills piled up. She mentored Richard's staff, teaching them budgeting skills that turned his business profitable, and when Claire's brother Nathan faced dropping out of law school over an $80,000 zero-cents tuition shortfall, Eleanor paid it, saying, "A mind like his deserves a chance." She even babysat Nathan's kids during his exams, her chemo-weakened hands braiding their hair. The Thorntons took it all, their gratitude as thin as sea mist. To them, Eleanor was a tool, not a hero. Claire seemed different at first. She admired Eleanor, or so I thought, joining us for Sunday dinners where Mom's clam chowder filled the house with warmth. But as our relationship deepened, cracks appeared. Claire started rolling her eyes when I spoke of Mom's charity work, calling her overly charitable with a smirk. "She's practically a saint, Ethan, but saints don't always fit in the real world," she'd say. her tone cutting. I brushed it off, chalking it up to her high society upbringing. After Mom died, Claire's support was perfunctory. A card, a hug, then "You need to move on, Ethan," she'd want that. It stung, but I clung to the Claire I'd fallen for, hoping she'd soften. The wedding planning exposed the truth. I wanted a small nod to Mom in our vows, a moment of silence, maybe a toast. Claire shut it down. "It's a wedding, not a funeral. Let's keep it upbeat." Her words were a slap, but I swallowed my hurt, not wanting to fight. Richard and Margaret were worse, their disdain for my roots blatant. "Claire's slumming it with you, Ethan," Richard once chuckled at a dinner, his whiskey glass raised like a gavel. Margaret called me Claire's project, implying I was a fixer-upper she'd tire of. I gritted my teeth, telling myself it was just their way, that love would outlast their snobbery. The first real danger came 2 weeks before the gala, at a pre-wedding yacht party Richard insisted on hosting. The Thorntons' yacht, the Sovereign, gleamed under the stars, its deck crowded with their cronies. I leaned against the railing, sipping a beer, when it gave way with a sickening crack. I plummeted toward the icy Atlantic, my heart lurching, but my foot caught a rope, halting my fall. Guests screamed, and Claire rushed over, her face pale. "Oh my God, Ethan, are you okay?" Richard, though, stood at the helm, his eyes glinting with something darker than concern. Later, a crewman whispered that the railing bolts had been loosened. I had no proof, but Richard's smirk haunted me. The gala was the Thorntons' crowning spectacle, held at their cliffside estate, a mansion that loomed over Cape Harrow like a feudal castle. They'd framed it as a generous gift, a rehearsal dinner to welcome Ethan into the family, but every detail screamed control. Margaret bragged about the $20,000 0 cents catering, the imported champagne, the string quartet flown in from Boston. "We're sparing no expense," she told guests, her smile a blade aimed at my modest upbringing. Richard clapped my shoulder too hard, saying, "You're lucky to be here, son." The guest list was a slap in the face, 200 of their allies, from senators to CEOs, with only a handful from my side. My father, Tom, a retired lobsterman, my sister Lila, and a few cousins. My family was tucked at a back table, like afterthoughts. Planning the gala had been a battle. Margaret scoffed when I suggested local seafood for the menu. "Lobster rolls? Ethan, this isn't a fish shack." She mocked my Maine accent, drawling "Aya" to her friend's laughter. Claire, instead of defending me, giggled, "He's just sensitive, Mom." When I proposed a toast to Mom, Margaret sneered. Eleanor was a meddling do-gooder, always sticking her nose where it wasn't wanted. Claire said nothing, her silence louder than words. I felt like a stranger in my own engagement, but I pushed forward, hoping the night would redeem itself. The gala began with a veneer of elegance. Crystal flutes clinking, the quartet's notes floating over the storm outside. But the air was heavy, the tension palpable. Then came the chandelier. I'd stepped forward to greet a guest when it crashed, a 500-pound behemoth of glass and gold, missing me by inches. Shards sprayed my suit, and Claire gasped, clutching my arm. "Ethan, oh my God!" Richard across the room raised his glass, his eyes locked on mine. "Close call, counselor," he called, his voice laced with mockery. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Was it an accident? My father's face darkened, his fisherman's hands clenched. I knew then this was no coincidence. The speeches were the final straw. Richard took the podium, his presence commanding, his tailored suit a contrast to my off-the-rack one. "Tonight, we celebrate Claire, our star, and Ethan, her companion," he said, the pause deliberate. Laughter rippled from his allies. He painted Claire as a goddess who deigned to love a commoner. "She's always aimed high, but Ethan keeps her grounded." Maybe too grounded. The room chuckled, but my family didn't. Margaret followed, her voice syrupy. "Claire's taught Ethan so much. Manners, ambition. He's lucky she's patient." More laughter, sharper now. Claire smiled, her hand on mine, but it felt like a shackle. Then Richard turned to Mom. "Let's not forget Eleanor Caldwell, the town's saint." His tone dripped sarcasm. "She had a knack for inserting herself, didn't she? Always helping where she wasn't needed." Margaret chimed in. "Her charity was just pity, poor thing." The room stilled, but Claire laughed, a sound that cut deeper than their words. My mother, who'd saved their empire, was reduced to a punchline. I felt the room split. Thornton loyalists smirking, my family and a few locals glaring. Cape Harrow's fault lines were exposed. Old money versus working-class pride, privilege versus principle. Margaret's apology was a farce. She glided to our table, her smile saccharine. "Ethan, dear, don't take it personally, just a bit of fun." My blood boiled. I stood, my chair scraping, the room hushing. "Fun?" I said, my voice low but steady. "You mock my mother who saved your family from ruin and call it fun?" Richard leaned back, smirking. "Relax, Ethan. You're making a scene." Claire tugged my sleeve. "Ethan, please?" But I was done. I faced the crowd, my voice rising. "Eleanor Caldwell gave you everything, money, time, heart, and you spit on her memory. You're not family, you're vultures." The room erupted. Thornton allies whispered, their disdain clear. My father stood, his weathered face proud. Lila's eyes blazed, ready to fight. Richard snapped, "Know your place, boy." Margaret gasped, "You're ruining everything." Claire's face crumpled, but her silence damned her. I saw it then. She'd never choose me over them. I turned to leave, but Richard's voice followed. "Walk out, and you're finished in this town." I froze. My law firm relied on Thornton contracts. My career, my home, my life. They held the strings. But Mom's voice echoed in my head. "Stand for what's right, Ethan, no matter the cost." I turned back, heart pounding. "This wedding's off," I said, loud enough for every guest to hear. Gasps echoed, glasses clinked as hands froze. Claire's eyes widened, tears spilling. "Ethan, no!" Richard laughed, a cruel bark. "You're throwing away everything, kid." Margaret clutched her pearls, whispering, "Think of Claire." But I saw my father nod, Lila's fist raised in defiance. Half the room, locals, workers, my people, cheered silently, their eyes alight. The other half, the Thorntons' elite, hissed, their loyalty bought. Cape Harrow was a battlefield now, and I'd lit the fuse. I walked out, the storm swallowing the mansion's glow. Rain soaked my suit, but I felt alive, free. Behind me, Claire's voice called, "Ethan, wait!" I didn't turn back. The Thorntons had shown their true colors, and Claire had chosen her side. But as I reached my truck, a shadow moved in the dark. A man, his face hidden, a glint of steel in his hand. My heart raced. This wasn't over. The Thorntons played dirty, and I'd just declared war. What had I unleashed? And what secrets were they hiding that made them so desperate to silence me? The rain hadn't stopped. A relentless curtain of water hammering Cape Harrow's cliffs as I stood outside the Thornton estate, my truck's engine still ticking from the drive. The Gala's glow faded behind me, swallowed by the storm, but Claire's voice, sharp, desperate, cut through the night. "Ethan, wait!" I didn't turn. My hand gripped the door handle, the cold metal grounding me as her heels clicked closer. Inside, I just shattered our future, canceling the wedding in front of 200 witnesses, their gasps still echoing in my ears. Richard Thornton's smirk, Margaret's crocodile tears, Claire's laughter at my mother's expense. They'd pushed me too far. But as a shadow flickered in the dark, a glint of steel in a stranger's hand, I realized this wasn't just about betrayal. The Thorntons were playing a deadlier game, and I was their target. I ducked instinctively, the thug's knife slicing air where my neck had been. My lawyer's reflexes, honed from years dodging courtroom ambushes, saved me. I grabbed his wrist, twisting until he grunted, the blade clattering to the wet pavement. "Who sent you?" I snarled, pinning him against my truck. His eyes, wild under a soaked hood, darted toward the estate. "You're a dead man, Caldwell," he spat, before wrenching free and vanishing into the storm. My heart pounded, adrenaline spiking. Richard's threat, "You're finished in this town," wasn't empty. This was war, and I'd barely survived the first shot. Inside the truck, I locked the doors, my breath fogging the windshield. Claire stood in the rain, her gown clinging to her, tears mixing with the downpour. "Ethan, please, talk to me." I started the engine, the roar drowning her out. She'd laugh as her parents slandered my mother, Eleanor. the woman who'd saved their empire with a $500,000 zero-cents loan, a new HVAC system, and tuition for their son, Nathan. Clara's complicity was a knife deeper than any thug's. I drove off, her silhouette shrinking in the rear view, but the weight of what I'd done, ending our engagement in public, settled like lead in my chest. Cape Harrow was splitting, Thornton loyalists against my allies, and I'd just lit the match. The next morning, my phone buzzed with 100 notifications. Texts, emails, voicemails. Claire's messages were a flood of apologies. I didn't mean to hurt you, I was scared, please, let's fix this. Richard's were venomous, you'll humiliated us, you'll pay, Caldwell. Margaret played the victim. How could you do this to Claire? She's heartbroken. I ignored them, but my law firm partners, who'd been at the gala, weren't so easy to dismiss. Over coffee at the Rusty Anchor, a diner overlooking the harbor, they cornered me. Ethan, you're said Paul, my senior partner, his tie loosened like his patience. But the Thorntons are our biggest client. You need to apologize, or we lose their contract and half our revenue. I stared into my coffee, the black surface reflecting my exhaustion. They mocked my mother, Paul. They tried to kill me last night. His eyes widened, but skepticism lingered. You've got no proof, and this town runs on Thornton money. Swallow your pride or you're out. The ultimatum stung. My firm was my lifeline, built on years of defending Mainers against corporate sharks like Richard. Losing it meant losing my home, my purpose. But Mom's voice echoed, stand for what's right. I pushed my mug away. I'm not bowing to them. Paul sighed, shaking his head. You're making a mistake, kid. Back at my apartment, a cramped loft above a bait shop, the town's divide was already erupting. My sister Lila burst in, her fisherman's boots tracking mud. Ethan, sue those bastards, she said, slamming a newspaper on the table. The headline screamed, Local lawyer humiliates Thornton heiress at Gala. Social media was worse. Half of Cape Harrow hailed me as a hero for standing up to the Thorntons' arrogance, posting memes of Richard's smirk. The other half, Thornton loyalists, called me a grateful thug, accusing me of sabotaging Claire's happiness. Lila's eyes blazed. Hit 'em where it hurts, their wallet, but Dad, sitting quietly by the window, disagreed. Lawsuits won't bring peace, Ethan. Let it go. Their split mirrored the town's, and I felt the pressure mounting. A lawsuit could ruin the Thorntons, but also my family's fragile unity. I tried to focus, but a nagging dread pulled me to my safe where I kept Mom's heirloom watch, a gold timepiece she'd worn through chemo, passed down from her grandmother. I opened the safe, and my stomach dropped. The watch was gone. My mind raced. Only one person had been here recently, Claire, dropping off her engagement ring days ago. She'd lingered, asking to use the bathroom, her eyes darting nervously. I texted her, "Did you take Mom's watch?" Her reply was instant. "What are you talking about?" "I didn't buy it. You were the only one here. It's gone. Tell me the truth." Silence. Then, "I borrowed it, Ethan. I wanted something of hers to feel close to you." "It's at my parents'. Borrowed?" She'd stolen a piece of my soul, and her excuse was a lie. Fury drove me to my truck, but as I sped along the coastal road, the brakes failed. The pedals sank uselessly, and the truck careened toward a cliff's edge, the Atlantic churning below. I yanked the wheel, skidding onto the shoulder, rocks crunching under the tires. My heart hammered. This was no accident. The thug, the chandelier, now this. The Thorntons weren't just threatening my career. They wanted me dead. I called my mechanic, who confirmed it. The brake lines were cut, proof at last, but who'd believe me in a town half-owned by Richard? I confronted Claire at the Thornton estate, a fortress of glass and stone perched on the cliffs. She met me at the door, her eyes red, her voice trembling. "Ethan, I'm sorry about the watch. I didn't think—" I cut her off. "You stole it, Claire. Where is it?" She hesitated, then led me to Richard's study, a room of dark wood and locked cabinets. She pulled the watch from a safe, its gold face glinting. "I left it here for safekeeping," she said, but her eyes flicked to the door, where Richard's shadow loomed. I grabbed the watch, but as I turned to leave, the door slammed shut, and a hiss filled the room, gas, sharp and chemical. My vision blurred, lungs burning. I lunged for the window, smashing it with a chair, gulping fresh air as I climbed out. Claire screamed, "Ethan!" I didn't know, but I didn't look back. Richard's safe, the gas, someone had planned this trap. At the Rusty Anchor, I met my best friend, Jake, a journalist with a nose for scandal. Over whiskey, he leaned in, his voice low. "Ethan, I'm digging into the Thorntons. Their hotel chains tied to shady offshore accounts, maybe even money laundering. Publish this and they're done." My pulse quickened. Exposing them could end their reign, but Jake's story would name my firm as their legal counsel, risking my license. "Me time," I said, torn between justice and survival. Jake nodded, but his eyes warned me. The clock was ticking. The town's divide exploded online. Pro-Ethan hashtags stem with Caldwell trended alongside Thornton smear campaigns accusing me of extortion. My inbox filled with threats, "Leave town, or you're dead." At the firm, Paul called an emergency meeting. "The Thorntons are pulling their contract," he said, his face grim. "And they're spreading rumors you're unstable, Ethan. The Bar Association's sniffing around your license." My career, my mother's legacy, my life. Everything was unraveling. Lila pushed harder for a lawsuit, while Dad begged me to walk away. The pressure was crushing, but a deeper question gnawed. Why was the watch in Richard's safe? Was Claire a pawn or part of their plan? And what else were they hiding? I dug into the watch's history, finding a hidden compartment Mom had never mentioned. Inside was a tiny key engraved with Vault 17. My heart raced. What did it open? A bank? A secret? The Thorntons' desperation suggested they knew more than Claire let on. I visited Mom's old friend Martha, a retired librarian who'd known her secrets. "Eleanor was investigating Thornton's deals before she died," Martha whispered. "She found something. Documents, maybe? She hid them, said they'd protect you." Protect me from what? A conspiracy? Murder? The pieces didn't fit, but the danger was real. That night, I returned home to find my apartment trashed. Books torn, furniture slashed, a note pinned to the wall read, "Stop digging or you're next." My hands shook, but anger drowned fear. The Thorntons thought they could break me, but they'd underestimated Mom's son. I called Jake. "Run the story," I said. "Burn them down." He hesitated. "This'll cost you everything, Ethan." I nodded. "It's worth it." The next day, Jake's expose hit. Front page news. Thornton Empire linked to offshore fraud. Cape Harrow erupted. Locals rallied at the town square chanting "for justice," while Thornton allies protested, claiming I'd framed them. Claire showed up at my door, sobbing. "You've ruined us, Ethan. I loved you." I stared, unyielding. "You chose them, Claire. You laughed while they spat on my mother." She flinched, but I saw it. A flicker of guilt, or was it fear? "What's in Vault 17?" I asked. Her face paled and she fled, leaving me with more questions than answers. At the firm, Paul fired me, but not before I slipped him the key. "Check Vault 17, I said. "It's bigger than us." He nodded, a spark of respect in his eyes. Hours later, he called. Vault 17 held documents proving Richard's hotels laundered money for a cartel. Mom had known and they'd silenced her. Her leukemia a cover for poison. The truth hit like a tidal wave, grief and rage crashing over me. I stood on the cliffs, the storm finally clearing, and vowed to finish what Mom started. The town rallied behind me, their signs reading "Justice for Eleanor." I filed a lawsuit against the Thorntons, not for money, but for truth. As I walked into court, Lila at my side, Dad's hand on my shoulder, I felt Mom's strength. The Thorntons' empire was crumbling, their lies exposed. Claire's last text came as I entered. "I'm sorry, Ethan. I didn't know." I deleted it. The fight wasn't over, but I'd won something greater. My mother's legacy, my town's trust, and my own soul. Cape Harrow's cliffs stood tall, and so would I.